I have a confession to make.
Great. Please
I
do.
may have found a new best friend.
I have a confession to make to you.
Yeah.
I have zero confidence in the fact that you found a new best friend or potentially even a new friend. That's a confession. I'm not saying it's true. I just
Oh
don't
man, we've
believe
been
in your
hanging out like
ability.
all the time, dude. We've been doing
Yeah,
like
what's his
tons,
name?
like Joe.
Joe? Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Hmm.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Hmm.
This is
Dude.
his last name happened to be Mama?
Mama.
Joe
Yep.
Mama?
Joe Mama.
Yeah, Joe Mama. Oh yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
I know Joe Mama. Yeah. Yeah, that guy, he's awesome. Yeah, he's really cool. Good luck with that. Good luck with
Thanks.
that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
We're tight, man.
Yeah, man. No, I'm highly impressed by your lack of ability to make friends.
Yeah.
Confession though, dude. Confession interesting topic.
Yeah.
Um and the way that it relates with friendship, I'm fascinated by it. But it's something that I think, especially as men of faith, especially as Christians, it's I don't know, I've not heard it emphasized necessarily um in a lot of churches. I'm trying to rack my brain if I've ever really heard it emphasized as it is in the Bible, but it's biblical, right? Like the Bible specifically says it calls us it doesn't beat around the bush, right? It doesn't say if you feel like it or if your comfort level permits. Like it straight up says, I think it's, what is it, James 5:16, straight up says, confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed, right? It doesn't, there's no mincing of words there. Confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. And that verse is kind of the motivation behind this conversation. It's pretty convicting because I think a lot of dudes, I say convicting, but it's, we've built the kinetic man around this idea of confessing, of having conversation, of being together and having deep talk and being honest, right? Being honest and being vulnerable. And I'll tell you, man, I absolutely treasure it. And that we see the power. We see the power in these men's lives when they do it. You see the power of that vulnerability and that friendship that is a result, and also the loosening of chains and bonds and sin and just gross when you do it.
Yeah, dude. I mean, um, it's interesting. I had a conversation with a guy this morning, and I think you had a similar conversation with the same guy. He's a new member of the Kinetic Man Mastermind, and he was kind of like questioning, we do hot seats pretty quickly into starting a tribe. And it's open kimono, right? Like the rules are you got to be honest and you got to be vulnerable, right? And we're not like going to be like, you know, messing around with like the easy stuff. Like it's the hard stuff, right? Like the one thing that you don't tell anybody, right? And the reason for it is to your point, like that causes you to be closer to, in this case, a tribe, right? And as soon as you open up, as soon as you become vulnerable, as soon as you confess your sins, it's like a weight released. And you're like, all right, the walls are broken. It's time to get real on everything else. Right. And so once the tribe goes through these hot seats, you're so much closer for it. And then you can have real discussions, about real topics and come up with real results. And so, this idea of confessing and friendship, that's what a true friend is. Like you and I, like we confess to each other all the time. We hold each other accountable to things, to force ourselves to get better. These walks that we go around. Some of the conversations are about business, but a lot of times the conversations are about stuff going on in our lives. The hard stuff. And who is it? Justin Whitmill early. Um, he he says that the a friend who um, confesses is a covenant friend. And a covenant friend is one that's like for life, right? A covenant friend is one who is there for you all the time, anytime. So I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, man. I think that uh, it's interesting because we've also gone so far away from this in our, just in our Western American, independent macho man culture. We've gone away from the truth of these words, right? Like we've gone away from needing other people, and that's cool, right? That's something that is, not only is it cool, but like when you do it, it's kind of awesome, right? You talk about the reason they do hot seats. Well, the reason you do hot seats is to create a level of trust, so that when you talk about the other topics within the Connectment Mastermind, you already have a baseline that you don't have to break through to be honest about that thing, right? About your marriage, about your family, about whatever it is that we that we talk about. And it's, but there's another side of it. There's a book, really good book called Life Together, Dietrich Bonhoeffer. For those aren't familiar, his book Life Together is oftentimes considered one of the best books ever written on community. Just a quick history. He was during World War II, he effectively started this community and set it up as a counter to the cancerous effects of the Nazi movement within the church specifically. And so he had this community that he set up. And in the book, he says, sin demands to have a man by himself. It withdraws him from the community. The more isolated a person is, the more destructive will be the power of sin over him. Sin wants to remain unknown. It shuns the light in the darkness of the unexpressed. It poisons the whole being of a person. And I love that quote because that is the desire of the enemy, right? And if you're not a spiritual person, you don't have to look very far to see, if you take, refuge in science, whatever it is that you seek, the truth remains, right? The truth remains that in community and in, if you don't want to call it sin and you want to call it whatever, you want to call it,
Doing
I don't know
bad
what you call it,
things.
doing bad stuff or being isolated or anxiety that cripples or whatever it is, all that stuff, a beautiful place for that stuff to grow is in the dark, right? A beautiful place for that to spread is in the dark, when you're by yourself and you're lonely, you have nobody to talk to, nobody to shine light on it. But when you do have somebody, regardless of your faith background, it feels better, it feels awesome, it's amazing, it's beautiful. And so I love the aspect of countering this it's very countercultural what we're doing in the Connect Man, because dudes are doing that. They're getting out of the dark, they're expressing this, so they're sharing things that they, like you said, they've never shared with anybody. And it has the power to grant freedom, it has the power to break shackles, right? It has the power to say something out loud to people that you trust and that you love, and them even just listening, not telling you how to solve it, just listening, to be there, to have somebody to say that to, it breaks a lot of the power of those things. And it's an amazing thing, right? But also, as a person of faith, if you are a person of faith, it's not a suggestion. Like it is a mandate. Like you will do these things, you will confess to others so that you can be forgiven and set free and all the good things that come with that, right? So I think there's just a ton of power that we need to really lean into. And again, I just want to, I can't overemphasize how amazing it is to have people, to have a community, to be able to pick up the phone, to be able to go out, go for a walk, to do something and be like, hey man, this is what's going on. Like, this is where I'm at. And it sucks. But just to have people to do that with, I can't imagine do that alone. Like now where I'm at in my life, I can't imagine doing that alone. It would suck.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I mean, think about all the times where like sin has come into your life. I bet most of that time is when you're alone, right? When you're by yourself, family's out of town, or um, whatever that is, you're solo, right? And that's when kind of sin creeps in. Um, that's when the bad stuff happens. So I love it, dude. I'm grateful to have you as someone in my life that I can have as a covenant friend to confess to each other, to hold each other accountable, and make each other better for it.
Yeah, buddy. And I would just say the action item here: be the person that's willing to be to say like, hey, Joe, your new best friend. Hey,
Yeah,
Joe, I, I would love, like, just imagine this. You go to somebody, you're like, I would love for you to be my covenant friend. And then Joe's gonna be like, oh, what's a covenant friend? That sounds cool. And then you're telling them like, I want you to be the guy that I'm confiding in. I need somebody in my life. I trust you. I love you. Like it opens a door to like to build somebody up, to make their day, to make them feel special, and it also gives you an inlet to have that type of friend, right? To have that type of friend, and I'll just say for me, like for you, I feel kind of bad because you have one or two. Like I have like 30 of them
they
in
don't.
our group, and it is
No.
so amazing. Like I have no problems because I just shed them all on all these guys,
Hey,
shed
friends,
them all on these guys.
friends don't tell lies either. Friends
Oh,
don't. Covenant friends
oh,
don't tell lies.
no, yeah, yeah. Well, didn't you start by or Joe Mama's a real guy? Like that's a real dude in your neighborhood.
Right down the street.
Joe Mama. That's a great name.
We
All right, man.
gotta end this. Bye. Love you.
Love you. Go find a friend,
Yeah, do
build
that.
them up, and be built up by them. Peace.
Bye bye.